Anyway, let's get back to the yoga. Get yourself into a comfortable seated position. I'm just going to talk for a little bit. A typical yin or restorative yoga class can last anywhere to like an hour and a half. So this is a condensed version, but I think you're going to still enjoy the impact of it nonetheless. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what yin yoga and restorative yoga is all about. So yin and yang, as in that little symbol that I got hanging over there, they're opposite energies. So you have yin energy is passive, lunar, cooling, and feminine. That's what we're going to be doing today. And yang energy, which is what we do in a more active asana practice, is more forceful, it's solar, it's heated, it's more masculine, warming yourself up. Okay, so the white part of the yin symbol is the yang part, and the dark part is the yin. Okay, and most practices are yang practices. When you do yoga, this is not. And so they're just designed to challenge the body in different ways. And yin yoga is trying to cool your body down, it nurtures it, and you're gently coaxing yourself into postures, and you're doing more passive movements. And when you do that, it helps your connective tissue, your ligaments, your joints, your fascia, all to lengthen and strengthen. So that's sort of, you know, the difference between the two. And the other thing that's the big difference that you're going to find, I am going to be running a timer today, because in restorative poses, you hold them for longer. We're going to try 2 minutes, and that may seem like a really long time to some of you. It may not seem long at all. I will give you cues as we're going along, so you kind of know where we are in that 2-minute time frame. But you're going to find that we will be holding poses longer today to really feel the impact of them. Okay, so without further ado, let's hop into our first pose, and I can continue after that. So we're going to do a supported shoulder stretch to begin with. And as I said in my email, if you read it, we're going to use all the props today. I'm going to get you into the pose, and then I'll start the timer, and we will go from there. So for the first pose, what I'd like you to have is just your blanket. And I want you to make that jelly roll like we've done before, where you just roll it up into a long round log like so, and put the folded side down. Okay, and then you're going to stretch out your legs, and you're going to come and lay your chest right on top of that blanket. And then I want you to take your right hand, and you're going to cross it over to the left, and then your left arm crosses over to the right. And you're going to just start here in a sitting up position, and maybe you want to wiggle around a little bit. I'm going to get our timer started here. And like I said, we're going to hold this one for 2 minutes. So right arm to the left, left arm to the right, and I have my left arm on top. Okay, so you can put the tops of your feet on the floor behind you, and you have a choice here as far as whether you want to just close your eyes and hold your head up, or you can drop your chin down towards your chest and just let your head fold forward, letting it drop down onto your arms. Okay. And now there's nothing special that you need to do with your breath here. As we do restorative yoga, you're really just, I'd recommend you close your eyes and just really let yourself notice in your body where you may still be holding on to some tightness or some energy. We're just about halfway through here. You may find your shoulders are feeling a little discomfort here. If you find that's the case, you can slide your elbows in and just make the cross a little less intense. If you want to bring them out a little bit further, you can do that. And you'll find as we go along, I'm going to start by talking a bit more at the beginning, but as we go along, and once we get into a pose, I'm going to leave some space where it's just silence. And those are the opportunities where you can just focus on your breath. You can notice what's going on in your body. You can maybe adjust if you're finding you're clenching or holding tight physically onto something. All right, so that's the end of 2 minutes. So I want you to slowly uncross those arms, come back up, and just take a minute to come up onto your elbows, wiggle around a little bit. And now I had my right arm in first. So as in all things yoga, we do one side and then we're going to do the other. So this time the left arm is going to cross over to the right, and then the right arm's on top this time. And you're going to try and get those elbows right on top of one another. And again, get your upper body resting on the blanket and wiggle around a little bit and get into your position. Maybe wiggle the hips, close your eyes, and begin to let your body just relax. So the idea here is to not be forcing anything. You want to just let things soften at their own pace. You can adjust at any point along the way. If you're finding it's a bit too tight or difficult. The other thing to keep in mind are the thoughts that are running through your mind. You have all kinds of interesting conversations sometimes when you do restorative yoga about the pose you're in, why you're doing what you're doing, your day, all the things can bubble up. And what I'd like you to practice is just being an observer of everything that happens for the next half hour. We have about 30 seconds. And now I want you to slowly slide those arms around, coming back up off the blanket. We're going to just move the blanket out of the way and just reach those hands out for a minute and just drop your head down. And then slowly come back up. And on our next pose that we're going to do, you're going to come into a tabletop position. We've done thread the needle before, but this time we're going to come into thread the needle and we're going to hold it. So what I'd like you to do is have your knees about pretty close together and your hands are under your shoulders. Now you're going to take your right hand and you're going to feed it through the hole that your left arm creates. Drop your head down onto the floor. And then I want you to walk your hands forward in front. You can place your palm down onto the mat and have your shoulder and other arm down and your head down. And we're just going to hold this now for 2 minutes. So as you're finding the pose here, you may be moving around a little bit. You want to make any little fine-tune adjustments. You need to wiggle your hips a little. It's fine to make little movements. It's not like you have to drop down into the pose and then just be completely still, unless, of course, that's exactly what you need right now. So you're breathing into this. You're noticing the sensations. We're about halfway through. Sometimes when we get into a tight pose, all we can think about is getting out of it. But what I'd like you to give a thought to is to know that everything changes, and this is only temporary. You have about 20 more seconds. Keep breathing. Lift your head up, slowly rise up, bring your arms out. Now, when we're coming out of these poses, I want you to take your time, because sometimes you've been stretching your shoulder a little bit. Maybe you want to do a couple of shoulder rolls here before we switch over to the other side. So we always come in and out of the poses nice and slow. Let's come back into tabletop position again. We're going to head on over to the other side. And now you're going to take your left hand, feed it through the hole that the right arm creates, and drop shoulder and head down. And now this right arm is reaching forward in front of you. You can just rest your palm on the ground. Close your eyes. Notice where you feel sensation. Let the breath move in and out naturally. Let it flow. We're about halfway there. And if you're finding your thoughts are occupying your mind, just know that they're temporary. They're here right now. They will move on at some point. Try to feel into the sensation. Trying not to judge. Remember, we're being the observer. Twenty more seconds. And now slowly lift your head back up, coming slowly out of the pose. Come back up into a seated position, taking your time. Do a couple of rolls with your shoulders in one direction and then in the other. And now we're going to slide down onto our side body. So just be on your mat and have your legs long. And you're going to pick up this top leg that's on top here, and you're just going to pull it around so that your foot is behind that leg. And then you're going to press your left hand into the floor here. I'm going to turn a little bit so you can see. So I'm going to use this left hand for support, lift myself up, and I'm taking that right arm out to the side. And I'm going to let that arm slide out. And we're slowly going to come down onto that shoulder. Let your palm be flat. And use this leg as sort of a kickstand to support yourself. And you can just let your head come down onto the floor. Just getting yourself into position, taking your time. This is called wing pose. We are stretching our wings. If you want to stretch the left arm forward in front or rest it on the ground in front of you, you can do that. Now you can either soften this stretch or intensify it by pulling your top leg back or bringing it forward. So if you're finding this is just too much on your shoulder, you can bring that knee in a bit. If you want a bit deeper stretch here, let that top leg roll out. One more minute, breathing. Being the observer here, 30 more seconds. Know that this pose is going to change soon enough. And then slowly begin to bring yourself out. Coming back up into a seated position for just a minute. As we transition from pose to pose, if you want to just keep your eyes closed or soft, that's fine. We're doing just easy, simple movements in between the poses. Now we're going to come over and get ready for the other side. So this time the left leg is down on the floor and the right leg is on top. Start with them stacked one on top of the other. And then you're going to bend that right foot and place it behind the left. Use your hands, your right arm for support. You're going to lift yourself up, extend the left arm back, and just let it fall back behind you. You're going to come down onto that shoulder. Take your time here. Use this front arm for support. You can let your hand be sort of up at an angle to support you, or if you're feeling okay, you can drop it down or place it on the floor. Just find what works. Maybe if you have a pillow handy, you might even want to put a pillow under this front arm. And again, adjusting your leg, bringing it in or pulling it further back is going to intensify the shoulder stretch. So what does your body need right now? Just listening, observing, breathing. Do you find that your breath wants to be a little deeper as you hold into these poses? Or do you just find a natural inhale, exhale? Remembering that thoughts that come into our head during these poses are temporary. They won't be here forever. Noticing, moving through the thoughts. Thoughts come and thoughts go. And we just watch them as they flow back and forth. "30 seconds. And slowly begin to bring yourself up out of the pose, taking your time, eyes soft or closed, doing a little bit of shoulder rolling, noticing how that felt for you. And now we're going to bring back the blanket roll. And if you have a pillow, that would be good too. You can put the pillow right on top of the blanket. And then open up your knees wide. I have my big toes together and my knees are about as wide as my mat here. And you're going to pull your little snug bundle here in towards you. And then I want you to slowly roll down onto the mat. If you want to tuck it in for a little bit more lift, you can do that. Wiggle your hips around side to side. Arms can come out in front. And then you're going to turn your head in one direction. Closing your eyes and settling in. If you find that your hips are feeling pretty tight in this pose, you can pull them in a little closer together towards one another. Wiggling the hips a little if you want to try and release a little tightness. We have about 1 more minute. Thoughts come into your mind. And then you can just let them flow right back out. Sensations come into your body, and then we soften and let those go. Slowly begin to bring yourself back up into seated position for just a minute. Bring your hands up onto your shoulders and just twist side to side a couple times. Good, and then come back to center, and we're going to come back down. We need to do the other side here, so reach those arms out in front again. And before, I had my left cheek down on the pillow, so I'm going to turn the other way and place the right cheek down, stretching out the arms, relaxing down. As you settle in, again, thinking about wiggling the hips, adjusting the knees in or out, a little bit back and forth. You can control the intensity of your pose, and it's totally perfectly fine to back off if something you're doing feels like too much. Watching the breath. We have about 1 more minute. Remembering that your thoughts aren't solid, they can move. And now slowly bring yourself back up. Taking your time, coming back up to seated position. We're going to keep this little bundle that we've made, but we're going to swing our legs around for this next one. So you're going to bring your legs on either side of the blanket and pillow. And we're going to come into a forward fold position here. If you find that this is not something that you can settle into, you have a couple of options. One is to take your 2 blocks and put them underneath the blanket so that you're lifting up. You're making another tier here. So you've got your blocks, then you've got a blanket, and then you've got a pillow. So you've got more height this way. Now start with your feet, lengthening your legs, flexing your feet here. And then I want you to just walk your hands forward and try to drop your head right down onto the pillow. And if that still isn't working, you can wrap the pillow around and make it even higher. So you're totally adjusting here to a point where you can just reach forward and lay into a forward fold position. Some of us may want to eliminate some of the layers and come down a little deeper. If you are coming down a little deeper, you'll feel this in the back of your legs, in your lower back. But again, we're just slowly letting our body adjust into the pose. Trying to breathe and let the thoughts come, and then let the thoughts go. We have about 1 more minute. Just beginning to notice how you're feeling now from how you were feeling in that first pose that we started with. Where's your mind? How are you feeling? And what is your breath doing? All right. Slowly begin to bring yourself back up into a seated position. And now we're going to take the blanket, remove the blocks and the pillow and all the goodies out of the way. And you can just bend your knees a little bit. We're going to scooch the blanket back behind us. And we want it a little further back, not in your middle back. We want it to be at about shoulder blade length. So take a minute here and wiggle around. And you want your shoulders to be laying right on top of it. And now extending your legs. You have a couple of choices here. You can have your knees bent and let your knees come together, or you can extend your legs. And then you're going to take your hands and reach them up overhead and let them just rest on the ground. If this is too hard for you, they can come out to the side. But see if you can find a place where you can hold them overhead. And just begin to let your shoulders soften. Let your hips and your middle back release. If you're finding your legs are extended and this is just too much for the whole back, try the bended knees approach. Walk the feet a little wider apart and let the knees come together. That will provide a little bit of relief. Again, making the adjustments as we go. Letting the breath flow. Letting the inhale come and the exhale go. Letting the thoughts come in and the thoughts flow out. About 1 more minute here. And now slowly lift those arms up over your head. Bring them all the way back around, down onto the floor, and slowly begin to roll yourself up into a seated position. Still sitting about in the middle of your mat. Just take a minute here to, again, bring your hands to your shoulders and just do a couple of twists here, side to side, nice easy twists. And then come back to center. So now what I'd like you to do is to grab your tie. If you don't have a tie, don't worry about it. You can still do this pose without one, but if you have one, let's try this. So you're going to take the end. I have like the little D-ring on the end, and I'm going to take my other end and feed it through both of those loops and bring it all the way down to the end. So I just have a little loop here. And I'm going to walk my right leg over to the edge of the mat and cross my left leg over. And then I'm going to loop the tie around that foot so that I'm hanging on to my foot here. And now I want you to scoot your hips over to the left side of your mat. And we're going to come down and we're going to reach the tie over. And we're going to grab hold of the tie or our wrists. So we're just creating a little sense of traction here with the tie. If you have no tie, you're just bringing your feet to the right side of the mat, your hips to the left, and then your arms over to the right here. Banana asana, we call this. If you have the tie, you're hanging onto it, pulling it tight, and using that to create some traction. And then once you are into your pose, take a nice breath in and release. And we'll begin here. So you're trying to drop your left hip down towards the floor as your legs are crossed. You're just hanging on to the tie with both arms reaching over towards the right. Nice long stretch on your whole left side here. Breathing. Trying to find your edge. Noticing if you need to make any adjustments. Have about 45 seconds. Let the thoughts come. Let the thoughts go. And then slowly unclasp the tie at the top with your hands. Roll yourself back up into a seated position again. Coming back into the center of the mat and crossing your legs. And now we're going to take that same tie and we're going to put it on the right foot this time. And we're going to scooch our right hip over to the right side of the mat, Bring your left foot over to the left corner and then cross your right leg over. Okay? Get the timer going here. Hang on. And then you're going to come down onto your back. And then you're going to reach the arms over to the left. So the right arm sweeps up and over your head. And it grabs onto the left. And with the hands holding onto the tie, you're creating that traction. If you have no tie, then you're just reaching your hands over and clasping them, making that C shape with your body. So you feel a pretty broad stretch starting from your right foot, up your right leg, up your right side, over your shoulder, over your head, and out your fingers. Remember to breathe. About 20 seconds left. And then slowly begin to bring yourself back up. Undo the tie. And back into a seated position again. Now you're going to take the tie and you are going to loosen up the loop that you've made, and you're going to wrap it right around you and just have it by your waist. And then up here, I want you to loop it through the D-ring, just the end of it, so that you're making a circle. So you just have a big circle. And then you're going to walk your feet in, and you're going to loop the tie around your feet. Now, if you don't have a tie, number one, you can use regular old men's ties and tie a couple of those together for future reference. If you have a regular yoga strap like I have, you can put it on just like I did. And now you're going to take the blanket roll, you're going to have it right about for the middle of your back, and then you're going to grab a block or two and you're going to put it behind you. Now, depending on the height that you would like, if you want to keep it in line there, you can come down onto this. So you're going to have the blanket right about in the middle of your back here, and the soles of your feet are together. Another option, this is probably better. Do this. Bring your blocks over by your knees and put them there for support so that whatever height you need them at, if you're super stiff, you might want them all the way up to the high point to let them just rest there, or maybe the middle, or maybe all the way on the low level. But give them a little bit of support there, and then put your pillow behind your head. You might have to fluff it up a little. And then stretch out your arms nice and wide. And come down into Shavasana. And take your time here just finding the spot that feels right for you. You may need to wiggle around your back a little, or adjust your hips or your knees. And just begin to feel yourself melting down into the mat. You're going to take a deep breath in. Exhale, release. Let your eyes close softly. Feeling yourself soften. Letting the thoughts come in and flow back out. Just being the observer, watching the breath. As we get to the end of our session here, I'm going to encourage you to stay right where you are and just, as long as you can, let yourself just soak this wonderful Shavasana pose up. My wish for you is health in your body, peace in your mind, and love in your heart. Namaste.